My guest this morning, she is not a stranger to the Reading Circle as she has appeared before. However, the last time she was on here, I think she was in pursuit of the doctorate. Oh, there it is. It popped right in just now. All right. The last time she was in pursuit of the doctorate, however, this time she has obtained it. So the last time I was calling her Anjerrika, but I tell you what, this time I'm calling her Dr. Bean. So, all right. So I'm going to go ahead. Let's see. Hello, Anjerrika. Now I'm looking for Anjerrika Bean, the Marc Medley. I hope all is well. Please consider this email as your formal offer. Nope, that's not the. I don't see the bio in here. So I'm gonna let you introduce yourself. If you can believe. Availability for a meeting. Nope, not there. Nope. Can't go through all that. So we're going to go ahead and get you introduced. But as I said, she was Anjerrika the last time I talked to her, and this time she is Doctor. So I'll tell you what, tell us a little bit about yourself, Dr. Anjerrika Bean.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Mark, for allowing me to come on the show. I really appreciate that. Like you said, I most definitely just finished my doctoral degree in criminology, sociology and criminology from Howard University. My interest is in inequality, criminology, and religion. And so that's what I study. I look at domestic, intimate partner violence in the faith-based community. And specifically what I look at is the way that race, class, and gender impacts the way that women actually report intimate partner violence to the Black church. Currently, you know that I'm serving on the board of Universal Rights Publications as the website coordinator. And so that's a little bit about me. I'm originally from Beaumont, Texas. And I just am living my best life. Pretty excited about just finishing the program and have been offered the opportunity to serve on a phenomenal board with phenomenal people, such as the CEO, with a person such as the CEO, IO, as you know very well, and I'm pretty sure your listeners know very well as well. So that's a little bit about me.
I know. So I'm gonna probe a little bit further about you. What undergrad? Where did you go for undergrad?
I went to the College of Biblical Studies in Houston, Texas, and then I went to Prairie for my master's degree in sociology.
Houston, Texas. I know you. My aunt lives down in Houston. She was in that, Missouri City area. She was down in that area of Houston, and so I know I've been there once to that area. I've been to Houston twice, but I've been to Missouri City once, and both of them were very cool. I was kind of like on layovers traveling for business, so I never did get a chance to visit her there. I think she's about to move shortly, but she's been down there for years. But Texas, I've been to Dallas, I've been to Houston, spent some significant time in San Antonio, so I've kind of been around the state a little bit. So I do know Texas well. So then you went to Prairie View, all right, and then now how'd you wind up at Howard?
So I actually wanted to go to HBCU, and I wanted to attend HBCU with a PhD program in sociology, and Howard University is actually the only HBCU with a PhD program in sociology. And I think what's interesting is that I didn't know that when I was applying for school, so fate would have it that when I applied to Howard, I applied for the Frederick Douglass Fellowship, which is it's a full ride to the university. I applied for that program, and I got accepted into the Frederick Douglass Fellowship for first-time doctoral students, and it led me to Howard. And so I moved to D.C. just to attend Howard, and was really blessed to kind of be able to just pursue my dreams and be able to attend an HBCU with a PhD program in sociology.
So what drove you in that area? What drove you down that path to have those studies, to have that study? I mean, you came through the biblical college, how did you get there and then to Prairie View and then decide to pursue the education even further? Walk us through that a little bit.
Okay, so I have a really an interesting story. And so none of my degrees were planned out. So I didn't have a straight path. Like most people kind of have an idea where they want to go or what they want to do. That wasn't really my story. Just life kind of just unfolded in the way that it did. And so originally I was in church studying theology and kind of in some non-traditional ways and kind of going through church classes and things like that. that the church was offering, the black church, because I'm huge on the work of the black church and how they help our community. And I'm a benefactor of the church. And so I was studying theology. Didn't really know at the time what theology was and how it was the study of God and how it impacted our people and it influenced our people, things like that. So I had a girlfriend that told me that maybe I should consider studying theology. And so that's how I ended up in the College of Biblical Studies. She actually referred me to that school. And then from there, let me go back. So I originally started kind of studying religion when I was in the military for 5.5 years, and I was stationed in Europe overseas. And my bishop was really big on the leaders in the church actually knowing theology. And so he is the one that actually introduced me to the field of the study of God. And I started studying there in, like I said, non-traditional formats and kind of learning about God, and it grew my passion to know more about God. And so when I got out and I moved back to Texas, I was going to originally pursue actually an associate's degree. I didn't really think I was smart enough to pursue anything outside of an associate's degree. And I went to the College of Biblical Studies to pursue that associate's degree, and the academic advisor there was like, you should try a bachelor's degree. And so I ended up getting into Christian leadership. So coming out the military, kind of already having some leadership skills, it led me that route. And then I was actually trying to, from that, I graduated with a bachelor's degree and kind of noticed that I wasn't going to be able to make a lot of money. And I'm just being transparent. I wasn't going to be able to make a lot of money with a bachelor's degree in Christian leadership. You need to go higher and to have more training, or you can kind of go into, parachurch organizations and things like that and see if you can find ways in order to make money. But at the time I was younger, I didn't see it as lucrative, and I didn't see it as a degree that was going to be able to, just for me to be able to take care of myself. I'm a single parent. I had my son really young. I was a teen mom, and it wasn't going to be enough for me to be able to pay the bills. And so I ended up saying I was going to go back to school to get a master's degree. I went back, and I was going to go to a school of, I forgot the name of the school right now, but I was going to go to a different school about religion, and they didn't accept me because I had a record. And because they didn't accept me, I ended up applying for Prairie. And I had, in terms like the Black Network and the Black Church, which is why I attribute a lot of my life and my studies to the Black Church and the Black Network. So they were the people that kind of set me up to get into Prairie View. And so a retired general called Prairie View and told them about me. And, one thing led to another, and I was accepted into Prairie View for my master's degree in sociology.
So now what branch of the military did you serve in?
I was in the Air Force. I served as a police officer for 5.5 years. I served for flight lines, law enforcement, gates, armory, a lot of different positions. So I was in overseas here at home and overseas as well. I was stationed at Lake Mead Air Force Base for 3.5 years.
And we might have talked about this the last time you were on the show, but I don't know if it didn't. But in any event, when you heard me a couple of minutes ago say I spent significant amount of time in San Antonio, that was at Lackland Air Force Base.
Okay. Okay. Yes, as a matter of fact, when you said it, I was thinking, you was on there on the boardwalk.
I went to the boardwalk. I went to the Riverwalk and all of that. Went down. I mean, but most of my time was spent down there in basic training.
Yeah, exactly. And I was a cop, so all of our training is in one space. So
right.
One spot. So we were at the at Lake and Heath at Lackland for a very long time, and I love San Antonio. Actually, it's a nice area. I wouldn't want to live there.
Right.
I love it a lot. I love Texas, to be honest. But I would want to leave somewhere else. I actually love the DMV more. I'll just say that.
But yeah, no. Well, now with San Antonio, I had friends that lived there, so I had visited them, and this is going back a long time ago. I had visited them a year or so prior to me going in the Air Force, so I knew the city. I'd been to the Alamo, the San Antonio Zoo, all that kind of good stuff. Yeah. But then when I got down there in basic, I mean, I was for the most part on Lackland, and then every now and again, I was down there during basketball season, so they would take us to a San Antonio Spur game every now and again. But I remember Liberty. I remember going into the city and all that kind of stuff, and I dressed blues and that kind of good stuff. But yeah, I have fond memories of San Antonio. So
you can always remember graduation too.
Oh yes,
around graduation time, everybody is down there on the river walking those dress blues.
That's right. That's absolutely right. So I have fond memories.
City.
That's right. I have fond memories of the Air Force and of Lackland and San Antonio and everything. I mean, a lot of the stuff that we did in basic training didn't really make sense to me till later on. And then it really kind of dawned on me that they put us through all those kind of crazy little drills in the event we wound up in war, because war would be chaotic. So they tried to create chaos with us while we were in training. But some
it's interesting too, because I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was gonna say that, but it didn't. That didn't dawn on me till later. It didn't come to me like that while we were in the chaos.
Right, exactly. Design chaos. But I've learned about myself is that I tell people all the time, and I was like, oh, if it get chaotic, I get calm. So whatever,
right.
Because I'm trying to figure out what's going on, and I think that that's really my military training, in chaos and under pressure. I don't get frantic. I get more calm.
Right.
Because I'm trying to figure out, settle myself so I can just see everything else that's going on.
And see, again, and since you're in theology and in the biblical studies, that's kind of like a metaphor for that as well, that the crazier things get, the calmer those of us who are believers get, because we know everything's going to work out all right in the end.
It's going to work itself out. Right.
Right.
Give it a little time. It can't stay like this for long,
I
do think that that's very true in our faith, that that's how we operate, as well. In some areas, right, where we may be stronger, in those areas that we get calm, like God has worked it out before and he'll work it out again.
Right.
And so it's no reason for me to worry or overstress or to overthink it, and I'm not going to allow anybody else to get me in that space either.
That's right.
I know that.
I know that's right. So in terms of now, so are you a minister, or are you a reverend, or are you going that way, or thinking that way, or called that way? Because I mean, a lot of most folks that go, well, many folks, I won't say most, but many folks that go down that track are called into that track.
Yes, I've actually been in ministry since 2007. Ordained minister.
Okay.
Since 2007, and so I've been actively involved in church. Now, I'm not a pulpit preacher, and that is something that's new for me.
Right.
In terms of transitioning into that arena, I think I need to learn to use my voice more, to trust myself more. That's crazy, huh? Right? Doctoral degree, talking about use your voice more.
No, not to me. I teach public speaking, so that doesn't sound crazy to me at all.
Yes, I'm leery of the things that I talk about or how I say them, or just things like that. I know that it's a lot in me, and it's a lot that's been given to me in terms of just who I am in academia and my life experiences. And I'm trying to figure out a way for me to harness those gifts and those skills and all the things that somebody have poured into me and be able to give it back. And I think one of the platforms that God could use is ministry, because we're here to help other people. Your story is not just for you. If you're able to kind of overcome and achieve some things, then you should be able to give that back to God's people.
That's right.
And specifically for Black Americans here in America, my story will be prevalent because I fit into both arenas. I fit into the poverty arena, but I also fit into the achieved arena and what that looks like.
Right.
The process that it takes to get there.
Well, see, at the end of the day, and most people, unfortunately, don't understand this, exactly what you just said. When it's all said and done, we were, every last one of us, whether we realize it or not or want to admit it or not, but we were put here to make life better for somebody else. Now, in so doing, in making life better for someone else, you also wind up making life better for yourself.
Right.
Folks don't realize that.
I agree. And it's very therapeutic, I was having a conversation with one of my friends yesterday. I think I was having a conversation with Denise, and we was talking about purpose. But we talk about purpose and stuff all the time. But I was having a conversation with one of my friends yesterday, and we was talking about what is that thing that makes you spark, or what is that thing that you're living for, your heartbeat of what is that thing for you, And for me, it is purpose, and I know that my life and my story and the reason that I was put here and I was able to achieve things is for other people. And that is very therapeutic for me. The opportunities that I get to give back, even if it's just a word of advice, or if it's feeding someone, or if it's you can have a ride in my car, I'll drop you to the corner, to the bus station, whatever. Those things are extremely therapeutic for me, or whatever. Number one, because I was the person who maybe needed a ride,
right?
Or needed a word of advice, or needed some guidance, and other people provided those things for me. And it's part of my healing when you cut me off from people, and you cut me off from anything that you cut me off from me being able to help other people. It hurts me to not be able to help other people. So my destiny and my life and my career, and you ask like, why do you have this intersection of science and religion when they typically don't link?
Right.
Why do I have that? Because we operate in a world that dictates and makes decisions off of science and patterns and things like that we find in our research, but we're driven by our theology, and I understand both of those worlds. But in understanding both of those worlds, I see myself as an advocate between the two worlds and bridging the gap to make people understand maybe what people think about you scientifically, but who you are theoretically, and how that plays out in society, and how do you maneuver through that as a human, as a person in society. And for me, like I said before, I'm interested in the Black community and what we're doing here and the way that we maneuver. And we're very tied to the church. Even if you don't go anymore, your religion and your beliefs and how your family operated, a lot of it came through the Black church.
There's no question. I mean, look, the bottom line is Martin Luther King Jr. came out of the Black church. The civil rights movement emanated out of the Black church. We would not, as African Americans, be where we are today if it were not for the efforts and the initiatives set forth in the Black church. Now, there's no way getting around that. Whether you believe or don't believe, the impetus for many of these movements that got us where we are was spawned out of the Black church.
Right, and to create agency for us. And I think that that's important. And, we can't get these degrees and sit on them and do nothing. We can learn what it is, even if you don't choose to go into your field and study what's going on in your field. At this point, you're a researcher. And at this point, you've had enough experiences in terms of what we learned in academics, but also in your collegiate experience,
right?
Your networks, the conversations that we have in our institutions, going to HBCUs about consciousness and things like that. All of those things that we learn, we know at this point what we're up against. And so there's a way, even if you don't choose to go in your field, for you to be able to give back, and give back in practical ways that can help the generation that's coming behind you. Because we do sit at these tables and have access to certain spaces because of other people who fought for us and that came before us.
No, absolutely right. We stand and sit on their shoulders, and we now must become the shoulders for someone else to stand on. That's why, back to what we were saying a couple of minutes ago, without a doubt, if we operated this way as a world, we'd have a lot less friction, a lot less hate, and we'd be a lot further along as a human race, as humanity. If everyone understood that you are actually here to make life better for somebody else. So that also means someone is making life better for you. People just do not get that concept. They don't understand the connection or the link that, or they can just be selfish. They can understand it, which is what I find in some of my colleagues, and I'm not coming from my goal is not to come from a negative perspective, because I care about us building together and holistically, right,
and going forward together. However, I will say this, is that some of us, we get these degrees and we know what we're up against, and we know what it took for us to get these degrees, and we consciously choose not to go into that arena or to help or to give back, because we are driven by our own selfish ambitions, and not subconsciously. Consciously, we know that we're driven by our own selfish ambitions, and we choose not to just go back. Like some people are just not willing to make sacrifices to make our country better. And I think you think you're getting ahead, but really you're knocking yourself further back.
That's correct.
Because if we strengthen our community and we strengthen our people and we strengthen who we are as a collective then we can go stronger forward together. Like, the old analogy they had with, like, you're stronger as a fist, rather than like one hand. When you ball up that fist all together, we hit harder.
That's correct.
And so if we just come together and put all of our resources and our skills and what we know together and lift up all of our generations, not in a self-pity type way, but in a way that empowers each other, then we can go further, So going into, for instance, if we go into a different population that may have high poverty, high crime, and we can think of any of those cities, and I'm not going to mention any because I choose not to stigmatize our communities,
Right.
But if we go into areas where they're highly stigmatized, the crime rates are high, and we go into that area thinking we're the savior for that community, then we've become like the white supremacists, that have tried to control and manipulate us, thinking, okay, well, I'm just here to save you. I'm just here to give you a little knowledge because I have all of this knowledge, and I'm so great and I'm so wonderful. No. How about you humble yourself, understand that your people probably came from these people, and then go into those communities and help where they need help because they probably can teach you some things too.
There's no question it's a two-way street, but at the same time, it's not necessarily that we're coming in as the savior, but we're trying to help folks. We're trying to enlighten, or in other words, we're trying to give them the fishing rod and not necessarily the fish. Now, I'm going to give you the rod and I'm going to show you how to fish. I don't necessarily think I ought to give you the. Now, that's not to say I won't give you some fish to get you started. But we're not going to keep giving fish. I'm going to teach you how to do this. Now, this is the other part of this, because I deal in the situation that you just described by being a principal in an urban area. The people that you're dealing with, they have to want it or know to want it as well. It cannot be a situation where they just sit back and think someone's always going to be giving and they have to do nothing. I was in church a couple of weeks ago and it was Women's Day, and the female that was the preacher for the day, there was a statement that she made that leaped out of me extremely hard. And she was talking about this whole notion of people expecting God to do everything and they have to do nothing. And so what she says was, your emancipation requires your participation. Now that leaped out at me, and now I took it and kind of I edited it a little bit in my environment and told the kids, your education requires your participation. So it can't be. It's not a matter of necessarily coming there being the savior, but it is going in there trying to enlighten and pull, like you said, pull the generation with you. Look, if I can get there with everything that we had to go through, you can get there. We can get you there. I work with kids,
and I do think that part of that is that whole empowering piece, right? Like, we're not here to handicap you.
Right.
We're not here to drag you along. As a matter of fact, we don't have time to drag people along.
Right. We really don't. No, you have to get up and do something. We need some help or whatever. That's exactly right.
Help you. So I agree. I think it's extremely important for us to empower and to give tools and to not handicap or call that when you enable people,
right?
Become enablers. When we just allow people to leech off of us, and then they grow up. Especially if we're going to talk about our youth and our children, they grow up and they think that that's how the world operates.
Yes.
That the things are supposed to be given to them.
Yes.
No, we're not going to do that. We're going to all work together. You're going to get up, and you're going to want to get up, and to help so that we can become better together.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
If I cripple you, then I cripple our race.
That's correct.
I know that I come here for that, or whatever. So that's exhausting.
No, it really is, because like the families and kids stuff, they think I'm just like, because I am very transparent and I'm straight up with them, and I let them and try to help them understand why I'm coming at them the way I'm coming at them. And it's just what we just talked about in terms of, I am not going to be one that's going to empower and enable you to continue this cycle that is taking us downward. Now, I'm going to call it as it is and then try to help you understand how we can get out of it. But I'm not going to sit here and keep on coddling you and enabling you. And like you just said, giving you the impression that that's how society operates. Because then, to be honest with you, I've set you up for failure, because you're going to come out of my school thinking, well, that the principal said, everybody was always giving me something. The teachers made me believe that I didn't have to do any work. All I would still get the A. So when I come at folks saying, no, you're going to earn this, they're kind of looking at me like, no, we're not going to give it to you. Now, if you earn it, by all means, you got whatever it is that you've earned. So I'm constantly challenging. Like my kids are coming to me, like my 8th graders are coming to me with their little working papers. Miss Medley, can you sign this? And I give them the same little speech. Let me tell you something. I know a lot of people in this city. I'm not going to sign off on this paperwork and you go be a sorry worker. Because they're not going to come back to me and say, Mark, you signed off on that. That's the sorriest kid I ever had. I said, we're not going to have that now. So if you can promise me you're going to be their best worker, I'll sign this.
Out here embarrassing the family.
That's right.
Hey, that's my name on here. You about to go out here and show out. You're going to go up and show out.
I know that's I know that's right.
Make us proud. You're right about that. No, I'm going to sign these paperwork, but you got to go shop. That's part of the process.
That's right. So they all promised me. I said, all right now. I better not get that call from somebody talking about this the sorriest worker I ever had. I better not get that call.
Right. Don't do it, because I'm going to call you. We're going to have a conversation. What you over there doing?
But seriously, I mean, we're having a good time laughing. But that really is back to what you were talking about. That's not, it's not a matter of being a savior. Like you said, we're pulling you along with the hopes again that you will in turn pull somebody else along.
Yeah, and we had really good examples of that.
Right.
And we still have good examples of that, whether the mass media choose to talk about it or not.
Correct.
Or to highlight it or not, which is why it's so important for us to tell our own stories, and to highlight our own people and to lift up those authors and scholars and community leaders that are doing great things for our community, which is why it's so important for us to do that for our youth and our children. Number one, for them to see it practically, like, Miss Anjerrika, she went through some stuff. Yeah, she had a kid. Yeah, she had a record, but she was able to finish this, or whatever. So, no, she's doing okay. She was able to make it, or there's other, people like the CEO of, like I keep saying, my girlfriend, Ayo, soon to be Dr. Rosario.
That's right.
Same thing with her, a black woman that started her own publication company. What does that look like, and why would she do that, and why is that important, and what stories is she trying to tell, and why is she trying to tell them? And our children need to know that.
That's correct.
These are things that we do in order to hold our own legacy. So I don't want to go rebrand Target.
That's right.
I don't want to go rebrand Walmart. No shades of Walmart. None of them. But I want to rebrand us and tell our own stories.
That's
we
right.
We're responsible for holding that legacy.
Absolutely. So for those of you in the listening audience, if you are listening and you want to ask Dr. Bean a question, I don't do the phone thing when I have my guests on the phone because I don't want to lose Dr. Bean and lose whoever's calling. So I don't do the phone thing there. If she was live with me in the studio, you could call and we could do it that way. But when my guests are on the phone, you can inbox me on Facebook. If you go to my Facebook page, you can message me. It's MarcAMedley, or either if you go to the Reading Circle with Marc Medley, if you go there, you can inbox me, message me, whatever Facebook calls it. Facebook message me. If I see it, I'll take a look to me because I'm on here while I'm on the show. I'll take a look at it, and then whatever question you have, I'll ask it to Dr. Bean. But that is the way you can get in touch with me on the show. You can inbox me on Facebook, either on Reading Circle 01 or either Marc A. Medley. Go to either, and then you can inbox me whatever question you might have after listening to our conversation of what we are talking about. So, all right. Have you done any published work yourself?
I published in a news chaser.
Okay.
And that's what we talked about last time. So I looked at some of the misogynistic hegemonic like conceptions of, I don't know if it was race, class, and gender, but what I looked at was Donald Trump and his interactions with women and the way that it was planned out in our society, and the impact I was questioning the impact that it would actually have on our children.
Right.
And the impact that it would have on our children if he was actually elected. And so when I wrote that piece, it was a very short piece in News Chaser. I wrote it because of, I was just kind of looking at the way the society was going and thinking about what was going to happen. And I was, at the time, I had voted for Hillary Clinton, and was thinking that she was going to, become our first woman president, and we had a wonderful example of a wonderful First Lady, Michelle Obama, in the office, and a lot of grace and class and dignity in our office. And if we got a man that was sexually harassing women and known and verbally stating that he had done it himself, and we heard him say it himself, what would that do and how would that impact our children, our girls, our boys, and things like that. So I published in News Chaser that article, and I think what I've learned since then, of course, we have had Donald Trump has been elected, and of course Michelle Obama, and is not in, as our First Lady. Well, she's forever our First Lady, but they're not living in the White House anymore. And of course, Hillary Clinton didn't get elected, which I will honestly say I think was extremely disappointing, and we've learned a lot of life lessons since I've written that article. But I say that to say this. I think that the election of Donald Trump is toxic for our country, and our country is in a really dark place right now, and we'll only know those numbers after the results come out of what this election is doing to our country. We know some of it now in terms of tearing us apart, but I'm worried about what our children will see and what will be their example. So, for instance, my son was 8 when Barack became the president, and so he's in the military, but his chief and commander was Barack Obama. So he got to see a wonderful man in office, operating in grace and class and dignity, and a great example for him to follow after in terms of achievement or being eloquent in speech or just dignified in his approach and humble and, caring, things like that. And then we, the young women, and this goes across race, class, and gender with Barack and Michelle, women were able to see a woman that was educated, black, smart, grace, class, dignity, just everything that she embodied, just truthfulness, genuine, just everything that she was, who she was as a black woman, who she was as a wife. All of these wonderful attributes that we know about Michelle Obama, we had those role models. And then there's Donald Trump.
Well, the interesting thing is the more he tries to make Michelle and Barack look bad, the better they look. The more, and I'm talking about Trump, the more he tries to make Obama and Hillary and all of them for that matter look bad, the better they wind up looking, because everything, for some reason, he's obsessed with them. That's the first thing. And interestingly enough, you were saying this about Michelle, because I just posted on Facebook this morning, and you might have seen it. Michelle Obama wins America's Most Admired Woman in Gallup poll. And then the second one that I posted was Michelle Obama says it's important to become more than just somebody's wife. Now, those two, they're on my Facebook page now. But it was the same thing with Barack. The more Trump tries to depress Barack, the higher Barack is rising. And Trump is too silly to realize that the more he's out there trying to make Obama look bad, Obama's looking better and better. Now, what you were talking about, the women, I saw a funny meme last week with Trump and the Queen over there in Europe. It was this meme where Trump is looking one way, the Queen is looking at this woman, at Melania, actually. It's Melania, because Trump and Melania, they always they're separate. They're never like really close. So there's this picture of the Queen. Right, there's the Queen in the middle of them, and the meme on the top says, I don't really care for your husband, but it's nice to meet you, Stormy. And when I saw that picture, I could not. When you talk about roll on the floor laughing, because you have to see the Queen's face, Donald's face, Melania's face. And then on the top, it has that, I don't really care for your husband. He's not one of my favorites, but it's nice to meet you, Stormy. Now, that said a lot.
That is a lot.
That said a lot. Now, it was funny, but it says a lot. This is a world leader who's calling the wife the mistress name.
Yeah. And did you see that? I'm gonna say this too, but I wanted to say this. So you saw that there's like a new sexual assault case that just came out,
right?
With Donald Trump. I can't think of the woman's name right now. I can't think of her name right now, but she is writing a book, and she's talking about how he sexually assaulted her in Manhattan, like in the 90s. There's another woman that came out, and I'm like, we started with this, and hopefully he won't get reelected, and we're gonna, we're still in it, and had other people that like validated her story and things like that, and I just feel like, just like we had. First of all, let's go back to two things. Let's go back to the comment that you just made about the Queen, and how you said that the Queen, somebody made a meme saying, nice to meet you, Stormy, on an international stage.
Right.
You know, we're looking at our president as a person who sexually assaults women
Right.
and cheat on their wives, you know, on an international stage. Globally, right?
Right.
And also, what that does, because we as adults, we may look like, man, Obama looks great, or whatever. Obama is everything, you know. But our children, they're impressionable. You know,
right.
It depends on what's being taught in the house. And it's toxic environment of, you know, like the toxic environment of male masculinity, and for people to elect somebody like that into office with the highest form of power in this country, you know, and on a global stage too, it's problematic for what our children are going to experience and what they think is acceptable practices.
That's correct.
You know,
that's correct.
It's not acceptable, and it's what's going on right now. You know, and our children are being impacted. People, you know, guys started to talk like Obama when Obama was in office. They wanted to. All the black guys were going into politics because Obama was in office. You know, they were looking at what was going on, and not only black people, white people, the Hispanic people, everybody was looking at what was going on. And I think, you know, Donald Trump is going to have the same type of level of influence and power, which is why those senators that are in Oregon that walked out, you know, during the vote just to make sure that the Democratic Party wasn't able to vote in something for climate change or whatever, you know, that's why they walked out. It's this whole arrogant attitude of, we ain't got to listen to the system. We have other ways that we can just, you know, disregard all of the systems that's put into place, even though they were elected to be in these positions to represent people. And the governor had to send them out, you know, send out police to actually get them, they're trying to get them to come back right now and to be engaged in this vote. I think that that's coming from the work of Donald Trump and his arrogance and his ignorance. And the same thing with Hope, who went in there yesterday and was supposed to, testify for that hearing. She went in there and went and talked. That's
right.
From our leader. So what's going to happen to our children if our leader don't have to abide by any rules, any regulations? Nobody has to talk. Everybody just walk out and get out and do whatever they want to do. Our children are going to follow suit.
But see, that's why, I mean, even beyond the whole womanizing thing, it's bigger than that in terms of, like you said, this whole notion of, I don't have to follow any rules. And you're right. The children are coming up the line feeling that same way. Well, you know, rules are made to be broken. Our president don't even follow any.
Yeah, at all. You're not paying taxes. You know, you groping women. There's no accountability. They basically said you was guilty for collusion. You know, everybody just disregarded the rules, and he has to follow all the white privilege in the world. You don't see it on display right now. I don't know what else you need to see. I don't know what else they need to pull out.
And the thing is, I mean, and I know people always, every time I say this, people get annoyed with me about putting it into the atmosphere. But the bottom line is, personally, I believe he's going to be reelected because there are a lot of people in this country who likes this foolishness. There's a lot of folks here within the country. They may be closeted, they may be smiling in your face and quiet or whatever, but the truth of the matter is they like this. That's how the man got in there to begin with.
Yeah, I agree. It's a lot of them that's closeted, just like it's a lot of them wanting their opportunity to be ignorant and to be, own this sense of arrogance and racism that they're embracing is what they're doing.
Unfortunately, Donald Trump has personified what was just, as we just said, closeted. He personified what folks have been thinking but not necessarily saying. And now that he's in there, they're like, they've been unleashed to say it. Like, you know what, I've always thought this, but now I got somebody who is the living embodiment of what I've been thinking. And so therefore, I can go ahead and do what I've been thinking. That's why we're getting what we're getting. Because you got someone who got elected, like you said, with everything that we knew about him, still got elected. Okay. Yeah. Everything. I mean, clearly there was clear on that tape with him and Billy Bob, whatever the heck his name was, what he said about what you could do to women if you're famous, this, that, and the other. That was clear. Yet it didn't matter. Oh, here it is. I just found the meme. I'm going to send it over to you. But in any event, that was clear. There's other atrocities that was clear. And if you notice the different scandals that have come up, including some of those appointments to the Supreme Court, the same kind of aura was surrounding that.
Yep.
And it's filtering its way down. You're right. I agree with you. It's filtering its way down to kids.
If you look at those elected officials that walked out on that vote about climate change in Oregon, if it's 10 people, 9 of them was white men and 1 woman. I'm gonna say this. I don't know how many. Can't remember how many of the people is, but I'm gonna say it was all of them was men and it was 1 woman, all white or whatever, and they walked out on that vote, Republican or whatever. I said they are, just rogue. We just gonna do whatever we want to do. Hope didn't talk. We're not gonna talk. Like what was the name of the man that he just didn't show up to one of the hearings. I hope he go to jail. I can't think of his name. But they none of them. That we're just not going to talk. Whatever Donald Trump do, that's what they choose to do.
Right.
And I'm just thinking like our next generation, our children, our leaders. We're gonna. I feel like there are other communities that are strong. The Hispanic community, the Black community, the Indians, all of the other communities that's kind of already been marginalized groups. All you're going to do is make us bunker down and fight harder because we're used to fighting, But those white children, y'all going to have problems. Or whatever, because we're going to teach ours that this is not acceptable practice, and we can't control some of the things that's going to come down through the institution that's going to impact our children, but we can control culturally who we are as a people, what we believe in, if we choose to continue to fight that fight. But the white parents and the white children, if y'all don't teach y'all kids some morals and some ethics, y'all gonna have problems, and it's gonna be very soon. Because soon as you do get, even if he do get elected, that's 4 more years. You got to deal with whatever that child is after them 8 years of putting that foolishness in them. That's not gonna stand when it comes back the other way. Because when people do get the opportunity to vote and to not vote in another racist, and that the new person actually stands for some morals and some ethics, then you're gonna have to deal with everything. That child is gonna have to deal with everything that's opposite of what you taught them because you didn't teach them basic morals and principles and how to be a better person in community and in society.
No, you're right. And see, the thing is, it's not even a matter of about being perfect. It's not that, because I can't even sit here and try to pretend like Obama or Michelle or anybody for that matter has been perfect. But there's a difference between being perfect and just being straight up blatantly defiant, blatantly, like I could care less about law, I could care less about anything. And that's what we're getting. And you're right. Back in the words of, and I know Malcolm X got into a whole bunch of trouble whenever he said that statement, but he said the chickens are going to come home, or the chickens are coming home to roost. Before it's all over, the chickens are going to come home to roost. You're right.
Yeah. This stuff ain't going to last forever. You can have 4 more years. I hope not. I'm not here at all. I hope not. But even if you do, it's not going to last forever. Trouble don't last always.
That's correct. That's why that song that was playing when you first came on, sooner or later, God's going to turn it around. Sooner or later, like you said, and trouble don't last always. You're absolutely right. So speaking of what you were just talking about a couple of minutes ago in terms of us being able to tell our own story, because this is where we're going to tie it into universal right. Those of you that are listening on, you know that I've told you that June was Universal Right Publications LLC month, that all of my guests in the month of June have been advisory board members. We all work together, sit on the advisory board of Universal Right LLC Incorporated. And Ayo Sakai is the CEO of the company. And we're all kind of friends, like we've been friends for years, and all have now kind of come together to, like Anjerrika just said, work together to tell our story. And the truth of the matter is nobody can tell our story like we can tell our story because we lived our story. Right. And so Universal Right Publications LLC is a publishing company that it will publish other works. That's not to say it's only going to publish our black works. That's not necessarily the case. But the major focus on Universal Right is being able to do scholarly work, research, as well as children's, young adults, and so forth and so on, that really do get down and tell the diaspora, the story, so forth and so on. Because our story does not begin with slavery. And I just said this to a student yesterday. Our story does not begin with slavery, regardless of what people try to tell us. We were something before we got captured.
Yeah. Strong engineers, doctors,
yes,
lawyers. We had our own system, economy, money, queens, kings. That's who we are. And that's what our children need to know, so that they operate in that space and they don't operate from, what do you call it? The fishing model, but you operate
from low self-esteem and all this kind of nonsense. Because the truth of the matter is, African Americans weren't the first group that folks tried to enslave. African Americans was the only one that was able to endure it. Now, even that says something.
Yeah, yeah. Like the people say, we are the descendants of our other people that survived.
Right.
We made it. You know, we came from strength, and we still build an economy. They still say the same thing about black people. You try to put us in the hood, and all we do is make it a mansion. You know, no matter what you do, we coming out. Oh, you gave us this piece of paper, I'm about to make me a whole outfit. You know, like we are those people. You know, we showed up. Where y'all at? You know, so black people come from a position of strength, and I think that that's extremely important for us to talk about, like how healthy our families are, how we love culturally who we are, economically who we are, how we pulled our resources together. So it even starts a black church, and so that which eventually led to black people having agency in society. You know,
you're absolutely right.
And so, who were we? Why were we doing those things? And how did it set us up to survive? You know, those stories need to be told. Number one, so we can implement we can put some of those practices back into place where people don't have as many resources or access to different things, but what they do have, they work well with, you know? And so I think that it's important for us to do that. And I'm appreciative of being able to sit on a board because it gives me the opportunity to hear different stories, you know, coming from different people talking about Afro-centered thoughts and just groups and populations from a position of strength. And I think that the more I learn about that, like I said before, I'm the person that actually wants to give back to my community, and I can give those stories back. And then you can see yourself as a person of strength, and not as a person that's kind of society have stifled you in any way. You know?
No, it's true. And like I said, you know, a couple of minutes ago, in terms of other groups was trialed and they died off. They couldn't make it. Now, there were a lot of us who died off in passage, in transit, but there's a lot of us who made it, hence us being here today. And kids really do need to understand, because, again, I always reference the population of kids that I serve, and I tell them all the time, I honestly believe if you knew your history, you would behave differently. I honestly believe if you understood your history, and that not just you, your parents as well. I honestly believe you all would behave differently if you understood your history. Now, see, you have an interesting combination between the theology and the diaspora, because this is a nice fit. It's a very, because, I'll tell you what you also get, and you may have come across this, is some African American folks who believe that it's the whole theology thing that enslaved us to begin with.
Yeah, I agree. And I think from studying religion, you know, religion can be extremely problematic, and we can't be afraid of those things, you know.
Right.
It enslaved us. Okay, great, but it gave us agency, too. You know, they was enslaving us in society. We was getting freedom from the church. Like, yeah, we have to, you know, operate in these, like, contradictions, but we operate in contradictions every day.
That's correct.
You know? But this is the one place that we come together where we pull our resources together, we pull our community up together, or whatever, you know. So I attend Alfred Street in Virginia, Alfred Street Baptist Church, and my church is huge on philanthropy, you know.
Right.
And so we have that huge HBCU festival every year, you know. And last year we had 10,000 students come through there, give millions of dollars away in scholarships,
right,
that we put on, you know, or whatever, and sitting on those boards and putting together those kind of programs for our people. The black church ain't dead. It ain't dead, because that's one of the sayings too, that it's not any, we don't have any, you know, it's not as valuable as it used to be. No, spiritually, we're still strong.
That's correct.
We're challenging who we are. We're still pulling together our resources. We're still getting out there and having health fairs in our communities. We're still, you know, providing resources for people who can't pay their rent or their mortgage or whatever. We're still doing those things. We can't let mainstream media tell our stories. We got to tell them. So,
that's exactly right.
So we're still doing those things. Alfred Street gave, and I'm only talking about Alfred Street because that's a church that I attend, but I attended another mega church in Beaumont, Texas, where when those hurricanes hit, it became the hub of the community, Antioch Missionary Baptist Church with Dr. Joe and Adolph, and then Alfred Street is Pastor Howard John Wesley. But they became the hub And the military was going over there, dropping off resources where families were able to come through and get water and soap and towels and Pampers and all kind of things for their kids or whatever, and it wasn't just for black people, it was for the community.
Correct.
Or whatever, the church is still valuable. And I'm the little girl, the teen mom that came to the church for resources. I'm her or whatever, so I see the value in the church, and nobody can tell me anything different because I'm a benefactor of the church.
Correct.
Spiritually and economically.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. In terms of, for me, coming through the church was where my skills were developed. I became a public speaker in church. I became a teacher in church. I became everything coming up the line for me started within church.
Yeah, and I said we didn't even get into that, and like my trajectory and how I ended up being a program for a parachurch organization called Jehovah Jireh Village, where we help families become homeowners.
Right.
At the church.
Right.
So I did that for, I worked for that company for 3.5 years, but I helped coach families into home ownership and financial literacy and things like that. But like you said, when you're trying to help somebody else, you help yourself, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
I learned how to fix my own credit, and I learned how to do a lot of things for myself. So when it comes to me helping somebody else, I can say, girl, you out with it. That's okay. Put it in the budget, or whatever. Like this, like you have practical ways of helping people and helping them come up in society. You don't have to have a lot. You just got to manage what you have well, or whatever, and cut out different things and cut out different debt. I got that from the church. The church hired me, a young black woman.
Right.
Good, getting out the military. It's hard to find work. The church hired me, and I got all those skills from the black church. And then I was a Sunday school teacher and a youth director. And now when you look at what did she do and why did she do it, I'm back in my community because they built me.
That's right.
Or whatever, I'm not doing nothing else. I'm happy. I was like, people, a lot of people think after you get your PhD that it's about status or class or, sitting at the top of the table or somebody even calling you doctor. I own my title, because I earned it. And so many, people don't want me to have it. Some people don't want you to have it,
Yeah, and I'm glad you went there because that's in terms of the whole doctor thing. Because I've said it here on the air before. For me, if I decide to pursue my doctor, it's not necessarily for somebody to call me doctor. It's because, one, I would do it just because at one point folks who look like me and you couldn't. That would be one of my driving reasons. Secondly, it would be just my love for education in and of itself. And it wouldn't necessarily be, again, for someone like if you approach me, you have to call me doctor. But at the same time, depending on what audience I'm in, yeah, you are because I earned that.
I earned it.
Right.
I earned it. And some people don't want you to have it, or they don't want to even give you the credit for it.
No, you're right, because my two vice principals, both of them are doctors. And they're both female, African-American women, both of them are doctors. And I have some of my teachers that will still say miss, and we'll have to say, no, that's doctor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's part of, that's not just a mistake. That's just not that's being done on purpose. That's saying, I'm not going to acknowledge your achievement.
Right. But I earned it.
Right.
I earned it. And I believe that, our titles, whether we like it or not, we still operate in a society that we operate in. But our titles give us access to different spaces, And I earned this title, and I know that this title is going to give me access to different spaces. And if that access is what my community needs, you're going to call me Dr. Bean.
That's correct.
So that's how it's going to go, because my people need me. And I'm not going to shy away from my title or what I earned, for your sake or for your ego or whatever it is. I'm not going to do that. So if it means you got to call me Dr. Bean for me to have this access to this space so I can help my people, then that's what I expect. Because that's why I was put here.
That's exactly right.
So I'm going to just own it. We're going to own these titles. It's going to be what it is, and whatever. So it don't come from a superficial place. It comes from a place of purpose and wanting to help our people and understanding of the power they have in it. Because other people don't shy away from any of the titles that they have. White people don't shy away from the titles they have.
That's correct. No, you're absolutely right. And so in terms of your role on Universal, I know my role is publicity and social media and marketing. And I know Allison's role is very similar. The two of us kind of work together. Do you know what is your actual role with Universal Right? What area do you have responsibility for?
Right. So I'm the website coordinator. So basically, my goal is to help people actually go to our website and find out what we're about. So I will direct people to, make posts on the blogs and just to become aware of the type of books that we're selling, and just be like, okay, this is our hub. This is the website that you go to if you're looking for this type of information. These are the type of books that we have, and also be a contributor and see what's going on in terms of what our board is talking about in our blog to kind of help raise consciousness. So I'll be doing that. And, of course, some of the other responsibilities that we all share as a team with pulling together resources to get people to want to publish with us and to want to publish with us, and then also so that we can highlight different authors that are out there doing phenomenal work. So I share the same responsibility as our other team members, but I specifically focus on directing traffic to our website so that people know how to get the resources that we're talking about in different areas. Yeah.
All right. Well, I tell you what, we've come close to the end. We're not there yet, but we're in a few more minutes. I'm going to turn the mic off and allow you to promote anything you'd like to promote, whether it's going to be appearances or your publications or services or where folks can get in touch with you and all that kind of good stuff. I'm going to do that in a couple of minutes. But I thank you so much. Where are you calling out of?
I am in the DMV. I'm in Alexandria right now.
Get out of here. That's where my daughter lives. My daughter lives in Alexandria.
Yes, I'm in Alexandria right now. I actually have a church meeting in a few minutes.
All right. But yeah, my daughter, I'll be going down there at some point before the summer is out to spend a little bit of time with her. She wanted me to come down for Father's Day, and I couldn't make Father's Day, but I said I'll come down one of the other weeks or weekends whenever I'm off on vacation. But yeah, she's in Alexandria, and she's loving it down there.
So last time you came, you said that you were going to come, and we was going to be able to grab lunch. So I hope we're able to do that this time.
Hopefully we will. I forgot all about that you're in Alexandria, and because I heard you say Virginia a couple of minutes ago, and I was going to ask her what part of Virginia is she in. But sure enough, that's right. You did say Alexandria. So yeah, I will make sure that we exchange numbers, either Facebook each other. Next time I come down, I'm gonna let you know whenever I'm heading that way, because Alexandria ain't but so big. So if y'all both in the same city, you ain't but so far from each other.
I'm around the corner and up the street. Around the corner up the street.
That's
blocks.
right.
2 blocks. Yeah.
So what's your next in terms of you got the doctorate now? What's next? Where are you going? What's next?
Okay. So I've been looking at what I would like. I've been looking at different positions in the U.S. Sentencing Commission, and so what they do is they advocate for sentence disparities for people in the criminal justice system, and what they're looking at is disparities in sentencing. And since we know that most Black people are part of the criminal justice system, then I have a strong desire to kind of go into that field and do that work. But that's just in terms of my career. My heart's desire is actually to go into the community, and I'm looking at relocating to Baltimore and going to do some community work in Baltimore. And I just want to be back with my people, just helping my people. I think that that's what I'm supposed to be doing in life, and I think it makes me the happiest. And I think that that's where my gift would be best used and served in either the criminal justice system, in the criminal justice system, and also in our community to do work there, and kind of some of the same work that I've already done in terms of housing development and empowering our community with jobs and economic empowerment and things like that.
Well, I'll tell you what, and you as a theology student, you probably already know this, but if you go to Proverbs 11:25, that's kind of like what we've been talking about this morning. And I'm looking at the NIV version. It says, "A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed." Now, if I look at it in another version, it was something along those lines of, "Whoever watereth, whatever soul watereth, whatever, he can't help but water get on them," something along those lines. But the bottom line is what we said earlier. You cannot help others without helping yourself. Now, this is the trick to this thing, because I don't want people to get confused in terms of motive, in terms of I'm only going to do something for somebody else in order for somebody to do something for me. It doesn't work that way.
It don't.
Logically, it don't even make sense, because half the time people that need help can't help you.
The King James Version says, "The liberal soul shall be made fat, And he that watereth shall be watered also himself. That's the one I like. The liberal soul shall be made fat, and he that watereth shall be watered also himself. In other words, you can't help but get water on you when you're trying to water somebody else. All right?
Ooh, that's good. Yes. That's a word. You'll preach. You'll preach, you know?
I know that's right.
It's a word for saints this morning.
I know that's right.
It will preach. Don't ever water somebody. You're going to get wet in front.
That's right. That's right.
Don't worry about you. Don't worry about you. The Lord says the birds of the air.
That's right. And I do believe if the world operated on it and not in that selfish mode that you were talking about, that as a world, we would be better off. So if people would understand Proverbs 11:25 a little bit better, because that's selfish. I mean, even if you think because I'm in terms of law of attraction and karma and what goes around, all of that to me are different laws, just like gravity, so forth and so on. And what I've noticed for me is, like when I'm on the road or whatever, I don't have a problem with if somebody's trying to turn or whatever, I don't have a problem with letting them go. But there are some people, they will you'll see them accelerate in order for somebody not to be able to get in or whatever. But what I've also noticed is because I let people go, people let me go.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that is true, because you're just a little bit more gentle in your interaction, you know?
Right.
And maybe that you could maybe people just feel that, you know, like the person that's not trying to be aggressive. Maybe they can just feel that it's just coming from a genuine person.
Right.
You know? And that is very true.
Yeah.
If you just slow down and calm down and pay attention, people will help you.
That's right. And see, going back to what we started in the beginning of the interview when we were talking about the Air Force and military and control chaos and getting calmer as things get more chaotic, that's kind of like where that whole thing is. We've come full circle in that. That's kind of where that is, and people do pick up on that energy.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, that is very true. And we pick up, that is very true. Mm-hmm. You know, I do attribute some of the way that I give that most definitely to the Black church first. But I do think it also comes from the military, and it's training at 18, and it's not about you.
Right.
You know, it's about giving back to something larger than you. And I think when you've been in the military and you served for so many years, and that's the only thing you've done, you don't know how to do anything else.
Right.
You're not doing anything else.
And see, again, for me, and I'll end with this before I let you go ahead and promote, is there is no such thing as a wasted experience. So, and they all generally, for me, because... And I'm not mad at people who've only done one thing ever, but for me, I've been blessed by God to have myriad experiences in areas, whether it be religious community, fraternal community, corporate America, education, you kind of name it. I've had some experiences in it, and they all dovetail. Yeah. They all work together. So in my mind, there's no such thing as a wasted experience. I've been a custodian, and now I'm a principal. So, I mean, I've gone from being a custodian in a school to the principal of the school and a whole lot of things in between. And I'm grateful to God for that. But there's no such thing as a wasted experience.
Right. And I tell you, if I wasn't a teen mom, I don't know where I would be.
See?
You know,
being
a teen mom really just makes you different. You know, like you're really different. Like I gotta survive.
That's right.
Little boy
gotta survive. That's right.
You know,
I don't have a choice. That's right.
Y'all see him? Somebody give me a job.
I know that's right. Well, I'll tell you what. Hey, we gotta eat. I know that's right.
Right, we gotta eat. Y'all gotta eat. My son is hungry.
Right.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you what, at this point, I'm going to shut the mic off. Any kind of shout outs, promotions, anything you want to do for the next couple of minutes, the mic is yours. You can say anything with the exception of a dollar amount. So if you're selling anything, you can't say at the price. Folks can get that when they talk to you. But other than that, the mic is yours.
All righty. Okay, thank you so much again, Mark, for allowing me to come on the show. I just want to direct everybody to our website, our company's website, which is www.uwpbooks.com. That is www.uwpbooks.com. That is Universal Right Publications. So if you want to find some of the books that we are promoting, you can find it there. If you want to look on the piece that I actually wrote on, which is Donald Trump's Racism and Rhetoric, that you can find that book there. It's called News Chaser, The Rhetoric of Trump in Essays and Commentaries. And it's a collection of different authors and scholars talking about the rhetoric of Donald Trump. You can find that there. If you're looking for me, you can find me on Anjerrika, on Instagram, on Anjerrika Bean. And that's A as in Alpha, N as in November, J as in Juliet, E as in Echo, R as in Romeo, I as in Ike, K as in Kite, A as in Alpha, and B as in Bravo. And that is on Instagram. You can also find me on Instagram at Anjerrika Bean. My last name is Bean, B as in Bravo. So, you have any questions, any kind of things that you just want to hit me up for, you are more than welcome to reach out to me, and I will respond to you as soon as possible. So I look forward to hearing from you guys, and thank you once again, Marc, for the opportunity to speak to your audience about, this is what we do. Great conversations about us, our people, and our society and our community.
I know that's right. Well, I thank you for rising early with me, and I heard you doing that military alphabet there, that Bravo, Echo, Alpha. What was N? N is what?
A is Alpha.
Now, I know A is Alpha and E is, I know you got the Bravo, Echo, Alpha. What's N? November. That's it. All right. Yeah, I heard you rolling it off. I said, that's that military alphabet. All right.
Phonetic alphabet.
That's right.
Right. Get that phonetic alphabet together, because I don't know what you're talking about. You right? Let me read that.
I know that's right. And she also, what Anjerrika mentioned, or shall I say Dr. Bean mentioned, was the book News Chasers. Most, if not all, with the exception of Cheyenne, all of the guests that's been on with the advisory board are in that book, News Chaser. Kenzo, Dr. Selassie, he's in there, as well as Anjerrika's in there. Io is in there. The only one, like I said, that I don't believe is in News Chasers is Cheyenne, but everybody else that's been on is in News Chasers. So if you want to get their perspective and views about our current president, the whole shenanigans around it, that's the book you want to get, is News Chasers. And that's available as well on Universal Right Publishing. And I heard you doing your job on the website. Give that website again. That's your area, so the website, get the website again.
www.uwpbooks.com.
All right, with that being said, we are done. We'll be in touch. The show will be going up either later today or tomorrow on YouTube, and I'll get the MP3 or MP4 link, whichever one it is, or both to you. All right?
All righty. Thank you again, Marc.
Thank you. Right. We'll be in touch.
All righty.
All right. Bye-bye.